in this course and every future math course that you take. It's that important. So, the order of operations. Number one, this list is going to go from, I should say, do first to do last. So the very first thing on our list here is going to be, if you see this in your expression to simplify, then you have to go and do that first. And you work down through your list, doing them in this order. The first thing is, do all parentheses and brackets first, and what we're going to do is we're going to, let me put a comma here, work from inner to outer. And you might even read that and say, what's he talking about? I don't understand this. Let me give you a couple of concrete examples. Just little, these are going to be little mini examples to show you what I'm talking about with each little rule, and then we're going to erase everything and do a ton of full-blown problems. So these are little mini things. What I mean by parentheses, everybody knows what a parenthesis is. It's the little curve things, right? Well, in algebra, it gets a little bit ugly if you have a lot of parentheses. You know, it's so many sets of parentheses going on at once because you might not see when they open and when they close. They might run together. So it's pretty frequent that you might see something like this. What if you had a bracket? This is what I mean by a bracket, that square bracket. 5 times, maybe you open up another parentheses, 3 plus 2, maybe you close that bracket, that parentheses, and then you close that bracket, minus 2. This is a great example of order of operations because you have the parentheses here. Now it's perfectly fine to put parentheses here and here. It's totally fine if you want to write it that way. It's just that with parentheses here and here, these two parentheses are going to be close together. And what if you had 5 more sets of parentheses? Then it becomes more difficult. So a lot of times you can switch to brackets if you want, but it basically means the same thing. What this is telling us in this order of operation list, I'll go ahead and underline this. I'm running out of ink in this guy right here. Okay, what this is telling us is that if you see, let me go ahead and just make this a little bit clearer. We'll underline it like this. Okay, what this is telling us is if in your problem, whatever you're simplifying, if you see parentheses or brackets, you must do what's inside the parentheses or brackets first. You must. That is the number one rule. If you see parentheses, they are put there for a reason, and that reason is that you have to do what's inside those parentheses first. Now, if you have multiple set of parentheses or brackets, in this case we have 2 because we have this set of parentheses and we have this set of brackets, then you work from the inside out. So that's what I mean, from inner to outer. So in this case, we have brackets here, and then we have parentheses. So what we need to do is first work on the innermost set of parentheses. So the first thing we would do is we would say 3 plus 2, and I'm going to show you that with this little squiggly line, that's going to equal 5. So then if I were going to rewrite this problem for the next step, then I would open my bracket, I would put 5 from here, multiplied by this 5, which is what this reduces to, close my brackets right here, and then I have the minus 2. So I have to still do the rest of the problem. And by the way, this is a great way to do this. Write down one little thing at a time so that you make sure and understand everything. Now, when you continue on, then the next thing you look at is you say, okay, I have another set of, it's brackets, but like I said, parentheses and brackets are exactly the same thing. They look different. It's just what I chose to write here. So you can say this is a set of brackets, and I look at my problem and I say, okay, well, I must do what is inside this brackets first. So I say 5 times 5 is 25, because I have to do that first before subtracting off the 2. Now I can drop the parentheses away because once I do this operation, the only reason the parentheses or brackets there to begin with is to tell you to do that first. So once you do what's inside of the parentheses, you can just drop them. And so now you have a simple thing, 25 minus 2, which is 23, and this is the answer, right? And this little bracket here, by the way, a lot of times I circle my final answer with a little half open bracket here. This is not an algebraic bracket. This is just telling you this is my answer. You could circle it if you want. A lot of people circle their answers. It's a habit I got into. So, number one rule, numero uno, very important. If you see parentheses in your problem, do them first. If you have multiple sets, do the innermost first, evaluate, then do the outermost first, evaluate. And so that's sort of the number one rule. All right, number 2 on our list, do all exponents. So like I said, this is a priority order. First look for parentheses. If you don't see any, or if you do see them, go ahead and do them. And then next look for any exponents. So for instance, if I had something like 9 minus 2 squared, question is, how do you do this? I'm telling you that you're going to do the exponent first because that's the next thing. But when you're new to algebra, you might not know. Should I take the 9 minus the 2 and get 7 and then somehow square the 7? Well, that's not right. That's what I'm telling you. You're going to get the wrong answer. You have to do exponents before you ever do any addition or subtraction because addition and subtraction are going to come way down here at the bottom. So the next thing you do, as far as your order of operations, is do this exponent. So you just make it 9 minus 4 because 2 squared is 2 times 2 and that's 4. And then of course now that you have a simple subtraction problem, you could just say that's equal to 5. If you do it the other way, if you try to do the subtraction first here, you're going to get completely the wrong answer. Okay, third thing. After you look for parentheses and then you look for exponents, you do multiplication and division from left to right. From left to right. Okay, a lot of times you're going to get down to the point where you're going to be doing things from left to right, just like you're reading a book. So for instance, if I had something like 5 minus 2 times 2. Again, early on in your algebra studies, you might not know what to do. Do I do the multiplication first, getting 4 here, and then do 5 minus 4? Or do I do 5 minus 2 and get 3 and then multiply by 2? Well, the answer is that's wrong. You must do multiplication and division before any addition or subtraction because those are coming later. So in order to do this problem right, what you would have is 5 minus, and then you do the multiplication. 2 times 2 is 4. And then you can simplify this. 5 minus 4 is 1. So this is the correct answer to get the number 1. If you did it the other way, 5 minus 2 is 3, and 3 times 2 is 6. It's completely the wrong answer. So there's really no shade of gray here. You can't mix and match the order. You must do them in this order. And if you don't, you're just going to get the wrong answer. Okay, so you're going to do multiplication and division. Okay, number 4. Next we do addition and subtraction. Addition and subtraction. From left to right. Just like I said, just like reading a book from left to right. And like I said, addition and subtraction is really the bottom of the list. So it's the very last thing you do is start adding numbers together. So for instance, if you had 10 plus 3 minus 2, then how would you simplify this guy? You would go left to right. You would say 10 plus 3 gives me 13. Let me go ahead and switch colors here. 10 plus 3 gives me 13, but I still have to subtract my 2, so I just write that down. And then for the final step, 13 minus 2 is going to give me 11. And that is the answer. So when you're doing your addition and subtraction, you know, we grow up learning about addition and subtraction first, and they're very important concepts to learn first. But it turns out that in terms of algebra, addition and subtraction are the bottom of the list. They're the absolute last thing you do. If you're doing addition and subtraction before you're doing any multiplication or exponents or any of that stuff, you're doing it wrong. Just try to remember it that way. So let me recap the list, because really there's only 4 things on the list, right? But what we need to do is work a lot of problems to get you comfortable. First, you always execute what's inside the parentheses first. Notice in this case we had some addition inside of these parentheses. And you might say, well, Jason, you just told me addition is dead last. So why are we doing this addition up here first, like in this problem? The reason is because that addition is inside the parentheses. Whatever is inside the parentheses, no matter what it is, you must do that first, because that's what parentheses are telling you. It's a giant neon sign saying you must do me first. That's what parentheses are. That's what brackets are. So even though I told you addition is last, we're going to do it first here only because it's inside the parentheses. So we do this, and then we have another something going on inside of brackets, so we do that, and then we do the subtraction very last because that's last on the list. That's nothing else to do either. So first you do parentheses, then you look for exponents. In this case we did the exponent first before we ever did any subtraction. And if you don't have any exponents, or after you evaluate them, you do any multiplication and division from left to right first. So in this case it was just 2 times 2. We did it first, getting 4, and then we did our subtraction last. Once you do everything else, you should only have, all of this stuff, you should only have addition and subtraction left in your problem, and then you go ahead and work that left to right like reading a book. So I could, just stop here and say, hey, this is order of operations. Hope you understand it. Good luck. Go have fun. But really, in order to get good at it, you read this and you understand it, but in order to get really good at it, you really just need to see a lot of examples. And I promise you that if you're not totally clear on this, or if it's a little bit fuzzy, that by the time we do all of these problems, you will be an expert in order of operations, because we're going to do so many of them that you will see so many different kinds of examples of what you would do first, second, third, fourth, that you're going to be good to go. So let's go ahead and start that process. Problem number 1. Problem number 1. 12 minus 10 plus 6. Well, first, there's no parentheses, so we don't have to worry about that. There's no exponents, so we don't have to worry about that. There's no multiplication or division, so we don't have to worry about that. The only thing we have is addition and subtraction, and it tells us to do it from left to right. So we're going to read it like a book and go left to right, because this addition and subtraction is all on the same level, and it's right there. So what we're going to do is say 12 minus 10 is 2. We still have to add the 6. So notice how I'm doing one little piece and then I'm rewriting the problem. Please do yourself a favor. Don't try to do this stuff in your head. If you're not writing 3 or 4 steps for every problem, you're doing something wrong and you're going to make a mistake eventually. Okay, 2 plus 6 is 8. So that is the answer, 8. If you do this stuff in any sort of other order than this, you're going to get the wrong answer if you start messing around like that. So let's go to number 2. What if you have 8 plus 10 minus 2? It's exactly the same thing. There's no parentheses, that's the first thing. There's no exponents, and there's no multiplication division. So we have to do the addition subtraction from left to right. So 8 plus 10 is 18. We're going to have to still subtract the 2. So in the next step, we take 18 minus 2, and we get 16. The answer is 16. Okay. Next problem. We have 36 divided by 6 multiplied by 4. So we go down our list. First, check for parentheses. We don't have any parentheses. Next, check for exponents. We don't have any exponents. Next, we do multiplication and division. Okay, we have some multiplication and division. And we do it from left to right because this is all on the same level, left to right. 36 divided by 6 is 6. We still have to multiply by the 4. So I'm not doing this all in my head. I'm writing it down again. 6 times 4 is 24. That's the answer. Okay. Number 4. 36 minus 6 times 3. Now this one's a little bit different because we have some subtraction going on and some multiplication going on. But we just go down our list. First we check for parentheses. We don't have any. Next we check for exponents. We don't have any. Next we check for multiplication. Well, we do have some multiplication. We must do that before any of the subtraction. So we just say 36 minus, we carry that over, we're not doing anything with it. 6 times 3 is 18. Now we can perform our subtraction. 36 minus 18 is 18. Now that's the answer. If you start doing this stuff in the wrong order, if you start doing the subtraction first and then do the multiplication, you're going to get the wrong answer. Number 5. We have 16 minus 1 minus 5. Now, first thing we check on our list, do we have any parentheses? Yes, we do. No matter what is inside here, addition, subtraction, fractions, anything, we do the inside of the parentheses first. So we have 16 minus, just copying this. Here we have 1 minus 5. So let me go ahead and keep my parentheses for now. What is 1 minus 5? If you remember back to subtracting your integers, 1 minus 5 is negative 4. We basically subtract the absolute values. 5 minus 1 gives me 4. I stick a negative sign on it because the negative sign is attached to the larger absolute value. So we have negative 4. Now here we have something interesting going on, because what we have here is 16 minus a negative 4. 16 minus a negative 4. And in this case, it's basically multiplying this -1 out here by this -1 here, or you can think of it as adding the opposite. So this ends up becoming 16 plus 4. You can think of it as add the opposite if you want. Really, this -1 out here is multiplying by that -1, giving you positive. 16 plus 4 is 20. Very, very logical. And you know what? People ask me all the time, do I really show all of these steps when I'm working my own problems, you know, off the camera here? Answer is absolutely yes, all the time. You know, a lot of people think, oh, when you get good at math, you don't have to show your steps anymore. Somehow you're better. That's not true at all. You're actually a much better student and a much better, you know, understanding of things if you're showing all of your work, because it shows that you know exactly what to do. If you start trying to do things in your head, it's just going to make a mistake. Then you're going to get frustrated. Nobody wants that. Number 7. 7 minus 8 divided by 4 multiplied by 3. So we don't have any parentheses or exponents. We do have some subtraction going on, but remember the thing said that we always do multiplication and division before addition or subtraction, and we do this multiplication and division left to right. So let's do it that way. 7 minus, I'm just going to leave it because we're not doing it now. 8 divided by 4 is 2. Still have to multiply by the 3 because I haven't done that yet, because we're working left to right here. So I rewrite it again. 7 minus 2 times 3 is 6. And now it's simply 1. 7 minus 6 is 1. You see, everything is easy once it's explained to you. You might look at order of operations and get intimidated, but once you see enough problems, you start to get comfortable with this process. Number 8. 8 divided by 4 plus 4 divided by 2. You have the same deal going on here. No parentheses, but you do have multiplication and division. I'm sorry, you have division going on. This addition is going to come later. So this 8 divided by 4 is going to give you 2, but then you still need to rewrite the problem and see what the next step is. Now, we have this addition, but that comes dead last. So let's do the division first. 2 plus 4 divided by 2 gives me 2. Now it's simply 2 plus 2 is 4. You know, there's a reason why I'm going to work so many problems in this section, and that is because you really have to become good at order of operations. If you do, your math life after this will be much easier. 6 plus 3 times 4 plus 3 squared. Okay, do we have any parentheses? No, we sure don't. Next thing, do we have any exponents? Yes, we do. So we do that first. 6 plus 3 times 4 plus 3 squared is 3 times 3. Now that's 9. Now you look again and you say, well, I've got addition going on. I'm going to do that last. I have to do the multiplication first. So I have 6 plus 3 times 4 is 12 plus 9. Now I have a bunch of addition. I just add them up just like regular numbers. 6 plus 12 gives me 18. I still have to add my 9. And 18 plus 9 is going to give me 27. 18 plus 9 is going to give me 27, and that's the final answer. So you do things one step at a time, follow the rules, and be in good shape. Number 10. Let's say 2 cubed times 3 squared. How do you handle that? Well, we have a multiplication going on, but we have exponents. Exponents come first, so we evaluate the exponents. 2 cubed. Does anybody know what 2 cubed is? 2 cubed is 2 times 2 times 2, and if you think about that hard enough, that's going to be equal to 8. Because 2 times 2 is 4, and then times 2 again, 4 times 2 is 8. So 2 cubed is 8. Let me go ahead and just make it clear and say that we're still going to do the 3 squared next. Now we do the 3 squared. 3 times 3 gives me 9. And 8 times 9 is 72. So we do that multiplication last. 11. We have 1 to the 4th power times 0 to the 4th power. We do exponents first before multiplication. So 1 to the power 4 is 1 times 1 times 1 times 1. So you're just going to get 1 multiplied by 0 to the 4th. Now let's go ahead and do this 0 to the 4th power business. 0 to the 4th is just 0 times 0 times 0 times 0. So you're going to get 0. So you have 1 times 0 here. And then that, of course, is going to equal 0. So you get a big fat 0 after all that work. Number 12. Let's say you have 4 raised to the power of 1 times 4 raised to the power of 0. Same sort of thing. 4 to the first power is just 4. So you're going to have 4 here, but you still need to do this. So we'll save it to the next step. Now, anything raised to the 0 power, we learned about this in the last section, by definition, it doesn't seem to make sense at first, but it's a definition, is going to equal 1. So you're going to have 4 times 1 here. And of course, you can do the multiplication at the end and get 4. 13. All right, what if we have 5 squared minus 3 squared? Again, no parentheses, but we do have exponents, so we do those first. 5 squared, 5 times 5 is 25, minus, we still need to do the 3 squared. 3 squared is 3 times 3 is 9, so we have 25 minus 9, and 25 minus 9 is 16, so we just do the subtraction like that. So we've done quite a bit of problems. We have quite a few more to go. I've got lots of problems here, and they get harder and harder and more complicated. So let's go ahead and slide the board over. These are what I call, that we just did, sort of the one-liners. If you understand that, and I think that you will, you're well on your way to really understanding order of operations. Now we're going to get into a few that have some fractional stuff involved, and it looks a lot harder, but really when I show you, it's not really any harder at all. So let's go and begin working on some of those. Let's say number 14. What if you had 30 minus 5 divided by 6 minus 1? So here you have a big fat fraction, which, if you remember, a fraction, this giant fraction, is really a giant division sign. But you have something on the top that has some subtraction to it and something on the bottom. Now, I could have put this, and some books do, as an order of operation. If you see a fraction like this, a giant fraction with some stuff on the top and some stuff on the bottom, I want you to always pretend to visualize like an invisible parentheses around the top, like that, and an invisible parentheses around the bottom. And I'm going to say that again, because if you can do that, it's going to save you a lot of time. Anytime you have a fraction like this with some stuff on the top and some stuff on the bottom, just envision like an invisible parenthesis around the top and an invisible parenthesis around the bottom. Now, if you do that, then the order of operations is going to tell you how to proceed. The first thing you need to look is see, do you have any parentheses? Now, if you can pretend to see these, you'll see that you do have some parentheses, and you must evaluate what's inside those parentheses first. So doing that, on the top, we're going to have 30 minus 5 giving us 25. On the bottom, we're going to have 6 minus 1 giving us 5. Now we have something we know how to deal with. 25 divided by 5 is going to give you 5. If you don't think about this little trick here, you're going to get confused. Do you divide 30 divided by 6? Do you take 5 divided by 1? I mean, what do you do? If you have a fraction like that, do whatever's in the numerator, do whatever's in the denominator separately, totally separately. At the end, then deal with your division. It's helpful to remember this. It's very, 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 very helpful, and it will save you. All right, 15. 75 minus 30 divided by 3 times 3. So it's the same thing. You pretend when you see a fraction like this that there's an invisible parenthesis around the top and an invisible parenthesis around the bottom. So we do them just like you'd think. So 75 minus 30 on the top is 45. And then on the bottom, 3 times 3 is 9. So you do that separately. Now, 45 divided by 9 is 5. That's the answer. So you see, it looks complicated, but once you know what to do, it's not complicated at all. 16. Let's say you had 36 minus 4 times 5, all divided by 4. Same thing. You do the top separately from the bottom, and then you go from there. So we're going to do the top and work on it, but in the top we have parentheses, so we do this first. So we're going to say 36 minus 4 times 5 is 20, all divided by the bottom, which is 4. Now we again look and we say, well, there's invisible parentheses there. I'm going to do that first. 36 minus 20, I'm going to get 16, still divided by 4, and now I can do that division, and I'm going to get a big fat 4. Okay? Always work the numerator and denominator of big fractions like that first and foremost. Number 17, 5 times 6 divided by 2 times 5. Looks a little bit simpler, and it really is simple. We're going to envision these parentheses around the top and the bottom, so we'll do them separately. 5 times 6 is 30, and the bottom, 2 times 5 is 10. And so when we divide these guys, 30 divided by 10, we will get 3. And that's the answer. So we're making progress. You are getting pretty good at order of operations if you're following up to this point, and I think that with enough practice, we will continue getting good at this stuff. Let's look at number 18. Let's get a little bit more complicated. 32 plus 15 divided by 5, all divided by 11 minus 2 times 3. You might look at this and start to worry, but if you just break it into logical chunks, it's easy. You have a fraction here. You envision invisible parentheses here and here, so we're going to work on the top and the bottom separately. Inside the top, we have parentheses. We must do that first. So what we're going to have is 32 plus, and then we do this guy right here. 15 divided by 5 is 3 divided by. We do this next, 11 minus, we must do inside the parentheses, 2 times 3 is 6. Now we have a much simpler fraction. 32 plus 3 is, because we have to do the numerator separate from the denominator, 35. And on the bottom, 11 minus 6 is 5. And now we just have the fraction. 35 divided by 5 is 7. So we get 7 for the answer there. Okay. Let's do something a little different. Let's say we have 3 squared minus 2 to the 4th power plus 6 divided by 2. So we don't have any parentheses, we don't have any fractions, any giant fractions anyway, but we do have powers. We have these exponents here, so let's work on those first. 3 squared, 3 times 3 is 9, minus. We still have the 2 to the 4th power to deal with. We still have the 6 divided by 2 to deal with. 2 to the 4th power. 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. If you think about that hard enough, you'll realize that that's 16. So we'll have 9 minus 16 plus 6 divided by 2. So we have this addition and subtraction, but that comes dead last. We have to do division first. That comes higher up on the list. So what we'll have is 9 minus 16 plus, and then we take 6 divided by 2, which is 3. And now we just have addition and subtraction, and we can handle that. 9 minus 16, when you think about it, you have a smaller number minus a bigger number, so the answer is going to be negative. So you're going to get negative 7 here, plus 3. So we have to add these guys together, and when you think back to our lesson on adding and subtracting integers, I think you'll convince yourself that this is going to be negative 4. That's going to be negative 4. And we covered how to do this addition of integers back before. Basically, you're adding two guys of different signs, so you can just subtract the absolute values. The sign goes along with the larger absolute value, so you have negative 4 like that. So when you look back at what you've accomplished, I mean, you can see that you're really getting the hang of order of operations. I mean, I'll give you a hint. It doesn't really get any harder than this. I mean, you can make longer problems, of course, but you have already learned everything you need to know to tackle any problem that anyone throws at you. You just have to take it in logical chunks. Now let's do number 20. And let's say it was 4 plus 3 times 2 divided by 5. Now, first thing you check for is parentheses. So we do the parentheses, but inside those parentheses, we have some multiplication and some addition going on. And we know that among these things, we have to do the multiplication first. So we do that. We keep the parentheses for now. 4 plus, we do this first. 3 times 2 is 6. Close the parentheses. We've got to keep the divided by 5 going on here. Now again, we still have parentheses. We didn't evaluate everything there, so we have to do that next because that's still inside here. 6 plus 4 is 10. And then we have to divide by 5 because that's left over. 10 divided by 5 is 2. That is the answer. 10 divided by 5 is 2. Okay, 21. Let's say we had 4 plus 6 divided by 3 multiplied by 4 times 6 divided by 3. Okay? So we have two things multiplied together, and both of them are basically inside of parentheses. So we have to evaluate inside the parentheses first. But again, inside of this parenthesis, I've got I've got addition and I've got division going on. I have to do the division first. So what I'll have is 4 plus 6 divided by 3 is 2. 6 divided by 3 is 2. Now, I can simultaneously work on this parentheses and this parentheses, so let me go ahead and try to work on this one a little bit. I have multiplication and division. Now, multiplication and division, when they're on the same level like this, can be done left to right. So 6 times 4 is 24, but I still have to divide by 3 in the next step. Now, I still have 2 sets of parentheses, so I still need to work on the inside of each one. 4 plus 2 is 6 times 24 divided by 3 is 8. And 8 times 6 is 48. So that's the answer. You're going to get 48. Okay, let's go to 22. 3 bracket 2 plus 4 times 3 minus 5 close bracket. Now you see why we use brackets, because if I use parentheses here, it's just going to kind of run together a little bit. But now when I use different symbols, I can zero in and I can say, okay, well, I've got a bracket here, but I've got a parentheses, and I always work inside to outside. So I'm going to work on this guy first. So what I'll do is I'll say 3 bracket, and then 2 plus 4 is 6, so I'm going to put 6 times the 3 minus the 5 close bracket. All I did was evaluate the inside of the parentheses. Now, I have a bracket. I have to work on this. Inside of here, I've got multiplication and subtraction. Multiplication is going to come first before that subtraction. So 6 times 3 is 18. Got to do that subtraction next. All right, so now that I have this guy, what I have is 18 minus 5, because I have to work in here. 18 minus 5 is 13. 3 times 13 is 39. And that's the answer, 39. So we just work inside to outside. Okay, let's work on the next problem. Let's say we have 20 times 4 divided by 5 plus 3 minus 4 times 1 raised to the power of 5 minus 5. It's one of those things you might stare at and not know where to begin, but you have to take it one step at a time. First, you got to operate inside of these parentheses, and inside of there you've got an exponent, so you have to do that first. So we're going to do a lot of rewriting here. 20 times 4 divided by 5 plus 3 minus 4 parentheses. 1 raised to the power of 5 is just 1 times 1 times 1 times 1 times 1, so you get 1, like that. Now we still have to finish off inside here. 1 minus 5 is going to give me negative 4, so 20 times 4 divided by 5 plus 3 minus 4. And I'm multiplying here by this parenthesis, so I can just put multiplying by negative 4, just to make it clear like that. Okay, now I have a bunch of stuff. Multiplication, division, I've got addition, subtraction, but I'm going to do that stuff last. So let's go and work left to right, multiplication and division. 20 times 4 is going to give me 80 divided by 5 plus 3 minus 4 times negative 4. Just working left to right. 80 divided by 5 is going to give me 16. 80 divided by 5 is going to give me 16, so that's what I got here, and I'm going to carry out the rest of the problem. Minus 4 times negative 4. Now here I've got a bunch of addition, subtraction. I can wait on that. I have to do this multiplication first. So what I'm going to have is 16 plus 3 minus, and what we have here is, when you think about it, negative 4 times negative 4. That's a positive number. Negative times negative is positive, and it's positive 16. So I'll make this a positive 16. You got to watch your signs. Now I have a bunch of addition. 16 plus 3 is 19 plus 16, and 19 plus 16 is 35. And that is the answer, 35. Okay, the next problem is going to look like 6 plus 3. And here I'm going to introduce a little something else. Let me show you this. Curly braces, you might see in some books, minus 4 bracket 2 minus 2 cubed plus 4, close parentheses, close bracket, close curly braces. You see, all of these mean the same thing. They're just used to differentiate. It's just that when you have nested parentheses like this, it reads a lot easier to put different symbols. So if you use the parentheses, then use a bracket, then use the curly braces. You don't have to. You can use parentheses. That's okay. I'm just saying that you might see this in your book. Don't freak out about it. It's just a different symbol. But it's the same thing. You must go to the innermost parentheses, which is this one, and do that first. Okay? So what do? Let's go ahead and rewrite it. 6 plus 3, bracket, -4, bracket, 2 minus. Now, inside of here, we have to do the exponent first. 2 cubed. 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. 8 plus 4. Close this, close this, close this. We still have to continue inside of the innermost parentheses. 6 plus 3, brace, -4, bracket, 2 minus. Now here, 8 plus 4 is 12. Close and close. Okay, now we continue to zoom into the innermost bracket. 2 minus 12 is going to give us -10. So we have 6 plus 3, bracket, -4, and what we have in here is -10. I put the parentheses around it because it's a negative number, and if you left it out with the negative, it'll look like subtraction. So to keep it clear, I just keep it inside the parentheses. So I'm going to have -4 times -10. That's what I need to do next because that's inside of these curly braces. 6 plus 3, and then when I have -4 times -10, you're going to get +40. And this is multiplied together. I just, again, put it in parentheses just to keep it separate. You could drop them in that case if you wanted to and put a multiplication symbol. You have addition and multiplication. Of course, you're going to do the multiplication first. So you have 6 plus 3 times 40 is 120. And now you just do the addition. So then you have 126. That's the answer, 126. Looks very complicated, but not too bad. This one's going to be even longer, if you can believe that. 6 minus 3 squared plus 2 minus 7 minus, over here we have a fraction, -4 plus 2 over 3 minus 1, multiplied by 8 divided by 2. 8 divided by 2. So what we need to do here is really dig down and figure out what we need to do first. And there's a lot of choices. We do have an exponent. We do have a lot of things going on. Remember, I want you to imagine that in the top of this fraction, there's an imaginary parentheses here and here. And so since there's no other parentheses anywhere else, we're going to zero in on this and perform that first. So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to do a lot of rewriting here. 6 minus 3 squared plus 2 minus 7 minus. Now in the top we have -4 plus 2 is going to give you -2. -2 in the top. And in the bottom, I'll just work on it now. 3 minus 1 is 2. We still have to multiply by 8 and divide by 2. Now, the next thing we can do at this point is look for the next thing. The next thing we need to work on is the exponent here, because that's next on the list after parentheses. So 3 squared is 9, 6 minus 9, 3 times 3 is 9. And we have the 2 minus 7 minus -2 over 2 times 8 divided by 2. Now, we have a lot of addition and subtraction. We're not going to do any of that until later. But here we have multiplication and division, but don't forget that this fraction is really division also. So if we're going to work left to right, we need to start here. 6 minus 9 plus 2 minus 7. -2 divided by 2 is -1. So we have this negative from here, -1. Let's just leave it clear like that. 7 minus -1 comes from here, times 8 divided by 2. Now, when we rewrite it again, 6 minus 9 plus 2 minus 7, this guy is like multiplication of this -1 times this -1, giving us a +1. +1 times 8 divided by 2. Now we continue going down the line. We did this multiplication. Now let's do this multiplication and then that division. 6 minus 9 plus 2 minus 7 plus 1 times 8 is 8. Got to divide by 2 at the end. 6 minus 9 plus 2 minus 7 plus, and then 8 divided by 2 is 4, getting much, much smaller. Now it's just going left to right. 6 minus 9 is going to give us -3, so we have -3 plus 2 minus 7 plus 4. And then continuing on, -3 plus 2, it's going to give us -1 minus 7 plus 4. Negative 1 minus 7, or plus negative 7, however you want to think about it, is negative 8. Again, you have to add the 4 at the end. And then negative 8 plus 4 is negative 4. Negative 4. That is probably the longest order of operations problem that you will probably see. That's probably the longest one that you'll see. You know, it's a lot to it, but really you got to go in that logical order. You have to imagine these parentheses here, do these guys separately, get that, do the exponent, get that, and then you're looking for multiplication and division. You do all that stuff, and then do the addition and subtraction. Just a couple more problems. They're going to be a little bit shorter than that one. All right, so what if A is equal to 1, B is equal to negative 3, C is equal to negative 4? Then we're going to evaluate the following expression, A plus B, C. That's what we want to evaluate. Well, we just plug in the values of the variables that we know. So we have 1 plus B is negative 3, C is negative 4. I put them in parentheses because these negative signs can get confusing. If you don't put parentheses there, you might not know if it's subtracted or if it's multiplied. So when you look at this, you see you've got a multiplication going on here, and in addition, the multiplication is always going to come first. So you have 1 plus negative 3 times negative 4 is positive 12. And of course, you can do this addition and get 13. That's the answer. Okay. What if we wanted to evaluate B plus A cubed minus D? We have to plug in what we know. We have negative 3 plus A cubed is 1 cubed minus D. And I didn't even tell you what D is. Actually, that's a mistake. That should be a C. So I'm going to put a C there. Okay, so we have 1 cubed for A, and then C is negative 4. So I'm going to go ahead and put this, let me go ahead and use the same color. I'm going to go ahead and put this in parentheses. And that's just to keep it clear because I'm subtracting the value of C. The value of C is negative, so instead of putting these two negatives right next to each other, I just like to put it in parentheses. Now we need to do what's inside the parentheses, right? So we can go ahead and do this. So we'll have negative 3 plus, and then inside here, 1 cubed is 1 times 1 times 1 is going to be 1. All right, and then we can just leave this exactly alone just to make it clear. Now inside here, again, we're working in here, we can do this multiplication because multiplication comes next. So we'll have negative 3 plus 1. Negative 1 from this implied 1 out here times negative 4 gives you positive 4. And then inside these parentheses, you have negative 3 plus 1 plus 4 is 5. And then doing this, negative 3 plus 5 is 2. And the answer is 2. Last problem, I promise, coming up right now. Let's do 2 times A times C times B squared minus A over 2A. Same thing though. You just plug in what you know. A is equal to 1, so you have 2 times 1 times C, which is negative 4, times, from here, B squared, B is negative 3, so just to make it a little bit clear, I put negative 3 squared, minus A, but A is 1, so minus that. All of this stuff is divided by 2 times A is 1. So that's what you're left with. Work on the parentheses first. And inside these parentheses, you have this guy squared, so we're going to do that first. So 2 times 1 times negative 4 times negative 3 squared. Negative 3 times negative 3 is positive 9. And you still have the minus 1 in there, divided by 2 times 1. We're still working inside this parentheses. 9 minus 1 is 8, so we'll have 2 times 1 times negative 4 times, and then this is 8. Divided by 2 times 1. Okay, now we can look at this as a fraction, and we can say, look, I'm still working on the top. I need to evaluate the top, evaluate the bottom separately. I've got a bunch of multiplication everywhere, so all I do is multiply. 2 times 1 is 2 times the negative 4 times the 8, and that's divided by, and on the bottom, 2 times 1 is 2. 2 times negative 4 is negative 8 times the 8 from here over 2. Now we have negative 8 times positive 8 is negative 64 divided by 2. And negative 64 divided by 2 is negative 32. This is the answer, negative 32. Same process. We just do these sorts of problems to remind you that this is a pre-algebra course, and so you are going to be substituting variables and values and things like that. Get used to seeing some letters. This was a long section, order of operations. I could have cut the problem list maybe in half, but I figured that it was better to give you a ton of examples, let you really get a good idea of what you're going to be encountering when you study pre-algebra, give you some comfort, give you some confidence from the easy problems all the way up to the hard problems. But it all comes back down to this, order of operations. You do the parentheses first, inside to out, look for any exponents, do those things next, then do multiplication and division left to right, then at the very end do addition and subtraction left to right. If you can get good at this, your experience in algebra is going to be so much easier, and so much better. Give you confidence, you do good on your tests, do well on your exams, be well prepared for all of the topics that are to come. Learn anything at mathandscience.com.